All right, so we got the brother Sig up here. He will be the opponent today, inshallah. Sig, want to say hi? Just maybe introduce yourself or something just before the debate starts.
Hello, 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 hello,
Yeah,
hello.
we can hear you now. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah. Before we couldn't, now we can. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've been literally screaming into my microphone for the past 10 minutes. I had to literally restart my phone because basically I wasn't able to like connect. Um, yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah. It was glitching out for me as well. I had to restart Discord. It wasn't letting me speak, but it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm here, man. Do you want to wait 30 minutes or like do you want to wait just like an extra 10 minutes to get people in here? Like,
All right. Yeah. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
fine, yeah.
But if you can,
So
but if can we do it like an extra 5 minutes perhaps because I think I'm not quite sure because it's a bit complicated, right? That's why I'm saying okay,
mm,
maybe 5 minutes, maybe an extra 5 minutes, not 10.
okay, five,
All
that's fine.
right. Is
So
it touchy
basically,
here?
yeah, man. So, can you rise Poppy Touchy, and give him like admin perms or something so that he can like
Yeah.
actually moderate? You know what I'm
I
saying?
already gave him admin, it's fine. But is he even in
Cool.
the stage?
Oh yeah, he's right there. He's right there. Yeah, he's right there.
All right, I'll invite him to speak.
Bro, you know how there's always many verses that people bring up in terms of Muhammad being in the Bible. So just so that for the sake of simplicity and so that the audience can follow along, would you like to stick to like a couple verses or so on and so forth?
I mean, personally, what I would want to happen is during the debate, I like to find the verses out. So, it stays more for what verses you're going to bring up and, that type of stuff. Because if I'm going to say it beforehand, before we've actually gotten into the debate, then, it's,
I see. I
yeah.
see. That's fine.
Because in most formal
Okay,
debates,
man.
you'll see that they don't actually say before it actually
Yeah.
starts. Right.
No, no, because I was just like for the sake of like you know how like we've had other debates for like for example is Muhammad in Psalms chapter 1 verse 3 or something, right? So like a
Yeah.
specific verse is what I'm saying, or like 2 or 3 specific verses, so that we can just like hone in on those details.
I
Um,
feel that
so
Okay,
would
that
be
we
a
now.
don't.
bit too of a fine argument, you know. It's uh,
I see.
it's the same thing, right? It just that makes it more general. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. It's fine. Then.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Okay, now.
Yeah, Itachi, what's up, bro?
Alright, yeah. So I just had a quick thing to like give to the audience and then to you guys,
Yeah,
like
I'm
as
gonna
for the
announce
debate.
in Christian. Yo,
Oh, okay.
Itachi, could you just announce in Christianity that we're having a debate over here? Uh, just like text style. Because I
Yeah.
want the Christians to see this as well. I want the Christians to make sure that they're here for this. Um, hopefully Diego is actually recording.
Oh, Morphe
Yeah.
said don't announce.
Joe Esther will be recording anyway, so
Morphe said don't announce yet. Could you just like send the recording to either Kevin or Itachi or someone because we want to post this on our YouTube channel as well. If that's okay.
yeah,
So
Um,
yeah, that's fine. Are you fine with it being on our YouTube channel as well?
oh no, that's fine. Like I don't really have a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're debating as well, so
All right. Yeah, I
alright,
give you the
so
information. That's fine.
okay.
I'm
So
gonna get
and
myself some
see
water.
you
So
checked
I'm
with
just
Guardian. You checked with Guardian, right? To make sure he's here. And he's recording.
Guardian. Yeah, Guardian's here. Yeah, he should be here and
Okay,
recording.
yeah. And DM him, make sure he's got it ready and stuff.
Yeah. Wait. Do you want Morphe to record as well?
But I guess it doesn't matter as long as one person records. He can if he wants to.
Okay. Yeah, man. To be fair, this has been long anticipated.
Yep, I
Yeah,
agree.
this debate has been awaited for ages.
Yeah,
People have
just
wanted to see this debate for as long as I
yeah.
remember. I'm not
I
gonna
think
lie.
we're gonna give people some more time than I don't see Guardian in here yet, so I'll give him
Guardian
some
said
time.
that he's recording. Yeah. So Guardian's
Oh,
recording right now.
oh, I see him
Yes.
now. Okay. Okay, so Seeker, Seek, are you ready? I'm just gonna address the audience if you are.
Yeah.
And then we'll see.
So, Seeker, would you
So
like to go
hello,
first since you're? Oh yeah, go. Sorry, Tachi.
sorry. Okay, so yeah, he'll go first because he's on the pro stance. So, alright,
Yeah.
hello everyone, and welcome to today's debate. The topic will be: Is Muhammad prophesied in the Bible? With Seeker of Truth taking the pro stance and Seek taking the con stance. To today's speakers, so you can see, can remember to have a fruitful discussion. I'll ping you in general text chat to alert you when you are in your final minute of time. And when the timer is up, I'll mute you in the stage so that the next person can speak, but if you're still wrapping things up, I'll give you maybe a few more seconds. Also, if you finish before the timer runs out and have nothing left to say, just let me know that you yield the rest of your time. All right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, is there a
Sure.
place where we're supposed to like post evidences or anything?
That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm just
Yeah.
setting it up.
Thank you.
All right. I've made the chat. I'm gonna tag you. You should be able to talk. It should only be
Do you want
me.
me to do you want me to ping you guys in that chat instead?
I'm already in
Definitely,
it,
yeah.
but I've already pinged SIIIG, so I think it's fine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just loading up my laptop now.
All right.
Damn rusty thing.
All right. So
Damn
you
rusty
said
thing.
you want to in around 5 minutes to get people in here.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope like a lot of Christians actually join this. I don't want it to just be weighted for Muslims. You know what I'm saying? I want
Yeah.
to use this as a teaching moment for people, and obviously to like spread some light on this subject.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, man. Like we already talked in DMs about like what we want to get from this debate as well, Tika. You know what I'm saying? Like we both don't really have malicious intentions. Like we just want to make sure that we can teach the faith correctly. Um, faith of Christ, obviously, on my side, and Muhammad on yours.
Yeah, the intention should always be to learn something because I swear,
Yeah.
if the intention is anything but wanting to learn, even if you win the debate,
Mm,
you're not going to achieve anything out of it.
mm.
You
Yeah,
you won't
definitely, man.
Yeah,
feel
promote
anything
fruitful
about.
discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
always
so question is
okay. Yeah.
LPT also going to be moderating as well, or is he just here?
Yeah, he's the moderator for the Muslims. So Joas, do you just wanna say hi or something, just so that we know you're here?
Yeah, yeah, hello.
Okay.
All right, yeah, all right,
Yo, what's
Okay.
up, Joe Weston, man?
Um,
What's up?
Yeah, hello.
all right. So he'll be the
okay.
mod for the
Yeah, man.
Muslims, God willing.
I'll get my timer ready.
Yeah, Siki, you can go first. So I think we have like 10 minute
Yeah, you have
openings
5 minutes
or whatever.
for your opening,
Okay, yeah.
All
for
right,
your
just tell me when you
introduction.
started the time.
Okay, when you start speaking, I'll start it.
All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the especially merciful. So, for those of you that have no idea what this debate will be about, even though it's on the title, but if you don't know, this will be about Muhammad, whether or not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, is in the Bible or not. Now, the main reason why Muslims such as me and many other Muslims as well, we try to find him in the Bible is because of the verse in Surah Araf. I'll read it in Arabic first, and then inshallah I'll give the translation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. الذين يتبعون الرسول النبي الأمي الذي يجدونه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل يأمرهم بالمعروف وينهاهم عن المنكر ويحل لهم الطيبات ويحرم عليهم الخبائث ويضع عنهم إصرهم والأغلال التي كانت عليهم فالذين آمنوا به وعزروه ونصروه واتبعوا النور الذي أنزل معه أولئك هم المفلحون. The translation for that will be those who follow the messenger, the unlettered slash Gentile prophet, whom they find described in the Torah that is with them and in the gospel, who commands them to do right and forbids them to do wrong, who makes good things lawful to them and bad things unlawful, and relieves them of their burdens and the iron collars that were on them. So it is those who believe him, honor and help him, and who follow the light which has been sent down with him who will succeed. Interestingly, the verse makes mention of the Torah that is with them. Due to the phrase "with" that is with them, some scholars have come to a conclusion that with them signifies that it is referring to, of course, in Islamic theology, we believe it's referring to the corrupted version of the Torah because it says with them, and the one with them in our belief is the corrupted version. And whether or not it is actually corrupted is a totally different debate. But for the sake of the argument, and just in case my opponent likes to use the argument that we consider the Torah to be corrupted, so why do we still try and find him in it? This is what I would like to say to that. So it is basically and this verse, which is why we try and find him in the debate in the Bible. I hope that this debate, as the moderator also said, will be a fruitful debate, and I hope the people listening, me and my opponent as well, we will all learn something new from this debate, and I hope that the conclusion in the end will be the conclusion, which is the truth. And whether or not I win or lose this debate is far from the actual intention. As I said, the whole reason we do this debate is so that we learn something new. Um, to be honest, I have nothing much else to say, so I'm going to end my opener there. Itachi, how much time do I have left?
1 minute, 45 seconds.
I have nothing else to say, so I think I'll just end there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now on
So is
to
it me?
SIIIG. Nope, you're on to it. When you start talking, I will begin the timer.
Well, peace and blessings may be upon everyone. May peace be upon this discussion here today. I do thank the Lord and God, my Savior Jesus Christ, for allowing me to have the opportunity to spread light on His good word. Hello, everyone. Obviously, I'm going to be taking the opposing view on whether Muhammad is prophesied in the Bible. Now, what I would like to use this debate and discussion for is to make sure that I can spread some light on the subject. I want to say this, and I want to say this very clear. In no way is Muhammad affirmingly described in the text of the Bible that we do have today. He's not mentioned in the New Testament, and he's certainly not mentioned in the Old Testament. Now, one of the many, many criteria that people do try to bring is the usual prophet like Moses, the servants, songs, and other sorts of format that try to allude to some person or figure that may be resting in Arabia. What I would want to say is very, very clear. Just because the biblical narrative names a location, it does not necessitate that must be about a specific person. And throughout the entirety of my debate, I'm going to be providing a list of criteria that basically have been affirmed by sages for centuries past that is going to show why Muhammad cannot be the prophet like Moses. Now, what I would like to also give is because I will be refuting the view on whether Muhammad is a prophet like Moses, I'm also going to be trying to show how Jesus may be the prophet like Moses or may be prophesied in the Bible in the verses that actually Muslims bring to try to affirm that Muhammad is not in the prophet like Moses. Final thing I would like to say is this, since it's my opening statement. The stakes here are pretty high. See, if Islam is wrong if the Quran is wrong on the claim that Muhammad can be found in the scriptures that have been given to the Christians and Jews, it means that the Quran was actually contradicting itself, in which it states that it cannot be wrong. And so, with the verse that Tika himself pointed out, my opponent is very, very sure to have to affirm his viewpoint. Otherwise, the text of the Quran is compromised and Islam as a whole may be weakened. And with that, I will yield my time.
Okay. Now we will move on into our 15-minute claims. First will be Seeker, and then will be SIIIG. So Seeker, hold on, give me a second. I gotta get the timer. So Seeker, when you're ready, to start talking, and I'll start timing you.
All right. So now we're at the part of the debate where I will actually start giving my verses out. So so it's 15 minutes, I believe. All right. So I'll be sending my verses in the debate chat, by the way, just in case you guys want to see what I'm sending. All right. So the first one, as SIIG actually guessed, seems to have guessed in his opening, it was Deuteronomy 18:18. That will be the context for this Deuteronomy 18:15 to 18. Okay, so I'll read the full thing out for the audience as well. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brethren, him you shall heed. Just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb, on the day of the assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die. And the Lord said to me, they have rightly said all that they have spoken. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. So this is talking about the prophet that is to come, like Moses. Now, verse 15 says a common so-called refutation to this is verse 15, which reads, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you." And apparently, because it says from among you, and since Moses is speaking to the Israelites in this verse, um, And you is referring to the Israelites. So this means the prophet must be raised up from among the Israelites. The reason that this is not the case is because the oldest reading of this verse, which comes from the Septuagint, which dates to before Jesus, and the oldest reading of this verse is not in the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, because the Dead Sea Scrolls do not contain this verse. They contain verse 18, but they do not contain verse 15. And this is why the Septuagint contains the reading for this, and it does not have mention of from among you. So the Septuagint version would just read, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren; him you shall heed." It literally just cancels out from among you. Now, verse 16 to 17 is where I get where this is one of my opposing arguments to why Jesus alayhi salam cannot actually be the prophet like Moses alayhi salam. So the reason for this is because verse 16 to 17 it lists the criteria on why is this prophet exactly coming. I'll read it out again. Just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb, on the day of the assembly, when you said, "Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die." Verse 17 reads, "And the Lord said to me, They have rightly said all that they have spoken." So this is showing that the reason this prophet is arising is because they do not want to hear again God's voice anymore, and God is actually agreeing with them in verse 17. Now, if God's voice is heard when this prophet comes, this means that the prophet, that the prophet, the so-called prophet like Moses, is not the prophet like Moses in reality, because if God's voice is being heard, it goes right against this. We do find this in the New Testament where God's voice is being heard. The exact verse for that is, um, sorry, the exact verse for that would be Luke 9:35. I'll send the context for this as well in the chat. Luke 9:33 to 35. It reads, "And as the men were parting from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is well that we are here. Let us make three booths, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing what he said. As he said this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my son, my chosen, listen to him." This is clearly God speaking. And since this is God speaking, since this is God speaking, saying that this is my son, and since verse 18 in Deuteronomy 18 is saying that God's voice will not be heard when this prophet comes. If God's voice is being heard, that means that this prophet is not like Moses, and he does not fulfill the criteria. Therefore, Jesus does
Hold
not
on.
fulfill the criteria.
May you take a break here? SIIIG's messaging me saying that he's lost connection.
Oh, right. I'll just wait for him to come back then.
Okay. All right. SIIIG, can you hear now?
I think he has the glitch where he can't speak.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, he just has to restart his Discord. That's it.
Yeah. Just Control R, and then that will reset your Discord. All right, SIIIG, are you able to hear now?
Sig, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, bro.
SIIG there.
Has he tried restarting Discord or what?
Bro,
I'll
he's
tell him
lag.
to restart.
Sig, if you want to go to task manager and end task of Discord, then start it up again.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay, yeah.
Hello, we can hear you now.
yes, yes.
Alright,
Alright.
so
Did you do that
And
control R thing? Is that what helped?
yeah, bro. Itachi, you're actually
Okay.
a godsend. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
I am so sorry. Wi-Fi moved nuts, and I couldn't hear anything for the past minutes. So you could try to repeat when
Did
you
you
say it.
say how many minutes?
Just
Don't
like
worry, I let him know to stop. Like when
okay,
you
okay.
messaged me, that's when I let him know.
Oh, great. Okay, so
right, so should I continue or
Yeah, can you continue from like a few sentences before? Just in case SIIG didn't hear those as well.
alright, I'll
Yeah, and
start
if
from
you
the
are
message.
concerned about your time, I did pause the time when SIIG messaged me.
Alright, thanks for that, that's fine.
Okay.
Alright, so I'll start from the argument, Deuteronomy 18:16 to 17. So as I was saying, that it reads, just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die. And the Lord said to me, they have rightly said all that they have spoken. So God is agreeing with them that he will not let his voice be heard again lest they die. So that when this prophet comes, simply God's voice should not be heard. So if God's voice is heard when this prophet comes, that prophet is simply not the one prophesied in Deuteronomy 18. And we see that God's voice is being heard in Jesus' time, when in Luke 9:35, and a voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son whom I have chosen. Listen to him." So this is clearly God speaking, and the people around him are clearly hearing him, or else why would God be saying, "Listen to him"? He wouldn't just be saying it to Jesus, of course. So since people are hearing God's voice when this prophet came, and since Jesus is the so-called prophet like Moses, he can't be the prophet prophesied in Deuteronomy 18:18 for the simple reason that God's voice is heard. And we continue. Reading Deuteronomy 18:18. It's literally just another. It's literally Deuteronomy 18:15 again, and then we read on a few verses after that as well. Deuteronomy 18:15 to 20. Okay, and whoever will not give heed to my words, which he shall speak it in my name, I myself will require it of him. But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name which I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that same prophet shall die. Now, some Christians like to say that because of the event of the satanic verses, when he apparently spoke in the name of Allah, Al-Mun, and when he spoke in those idols' names, then apparently this shows that he is speaking in the name of other gods. And of course, those are pagan gods. So if he did speak in their names, that means that he is clearly not prophesying Deuteronomy 18:18, in Deuteronomy 18 for that simple reason. Now, this claim comes from books written by people such as Ibn Ishaq, and the simple refutation to this is that there's no isnad, sahih isnad to this narration. It's very very weak. And two, in Islamic theology, the Prophet ﷺ was infallible with regarding to the conveying of this message. And number three, even if this report was sahih, even for argument's sake, even though it is not, if it was, scholars have come to a conclusion that this is only to be understood as the Prophet did not
Wait,
say
wait,
these
wait,
words.
wait, 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 Seek. Uh, Sig isn't here. I just paused your time.
What's going on?
I don't get it. I don't even know when he left because I was messaging someone on Discord, but I just noticed.
Itachi, did he message you or anything?
No, not yet.
He's in
No.
audience. Sure, I'll invite him to speak. Let's see.
Okay, invite him to speak. Hopefully he was hearing that.
Yeah, I've invited him to speak. He's not accepting the invitation.
Speaker, do you have a transcript? You can maybe like like your script that you can send to SIIG.
I'm not really reading off something. I'm just saying it right now.
Okay.
MashaAllah.
Is he still in the stage? Is he still here or has he left?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
in
he still has the
audience.
invite, so he's still here.
Yeah.
Sig, if you can't speak or something, or you can't speak, just message one of us. Let me message him.
Hello?
Yeah, bro, where did you go?
Okay, someone switched off the Wi-Fi in my home whilst they were trying to make repairs, okay? And basically everything went crazy. I'm so sorry.
Your Wi-Fi is having a wild one
You should
today.
post whatever you post. Yeah, this is disgusting. My house is going under repairs, but could you wait, did you post anything in like the debate text?
I haven't added anything new there. I don't know if you've read
That's
what.
fine.
All right.
So where is it? Like I can't see the channel actually. That's fine.
Well, I'll just tag you there again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Attach how much time you
Debate
have left.
chat.
Say again?
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you for tagging me in debate chat. So it said you brought up Luke 9, verse 33 to 35.
I
And
just the recent one I sent was Deuteronomy 18:15 to 20.
oh, okay.
Seeker, do you want me to
And
start your timer again?
yeah, could you
How much
start the
time do you
timer
have
again?
left?
7 minutes, 35 seconds.
Yeah, start taking it.
Okay.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Right. As I was saying, that verse 20, some say that this is showing that if the prophet speaks in the name of other gods, and apparently the narration that says that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke in the name of Allah, Al Munna and Al Manat, the idol pagan gods of pre-Islamic Arabia, then that shows that he cannot be the one in Deuteronomy 18 for the simple reason he spoke in the name of other gods. Now, the reason that this narration itself is false is because one, there is no sahih isnad to this. So, if Sheikh wants to make this argument, then he can only make this argument if he can give me an authentic isnad for this. First of all, and number two, uh, in Islamic theology, the Prophet ﷺ was infallible with regard conveying or to the conveying of his message. So the reason this is important is, for example, if there was a heretical Christian in somewhere in the first century who said that Jesus was not God, then of course I doubt that you guys would accept that, because for the simple reason that what he's written is heretical and it goes against what you guys believe and what your scripture says, and that's why you guys would go against that. In the same way, this report we go against it as well, because it goes directly against Islamic theology. And number three, even if this report was sahih, for argument's sake, just for argument's sake, even though it is not an authentic narration, scholars have come to a conclusion that this is referring to shaitan making the disbelievers, Satan making the disbelievers hear this, even though the Prophet ﷺ did not actually say it. And that's basically that refuted as well. And another argument that people use to show that this is wrong as well, to show that apparently it's not about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that ancient Jews considered this to be messianic. We read in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Scroll 1QS 9 to 11, on the commentary of Deuteronomy 18, the saying what it said on Deuteronomy 18:18 in the Dead Sea Scrolls. and I quote, "They shall deviate from none of the teachings of the law whereby they would walk in their willful heart completely. They shall govern themselves using the original precepts by which the men of the Yahad began to be instructed, doing so until they come the Prophet and the Messiahs of Aaron and Israel." So the Prophet will come and the Messiahs of Aaron and Israel will come. So the Prophet is separate to the Messiahs of Aaron and Israel. Scholars have said that the messiahs referred to, one will come from Aaron, one will come from Israel, and the prophet is separate from these. So this shows that the earliest Jewish source we have shows that it is that this prophet is separate to the Messiah, showing that this prophet will not be the Messiah, and since Jesus in Islam and Christianity is the Messiah, he cannot be the one in he cannot be the one in Deuteronomy 18. And I will also send this into debate chat as well, just so that my opponent can see this. And another argument used against this is that the context shows that it's referring to the tribe of Levi. Um, the reason that this is not a good claim is because, so if you're going to make this claim, then I do not know if SIIG uses this claim as well. But whenever a Muslim uses Isaiah 42, for example, they say that the reference to God and Kedar and Selah is separate to the reference of the servant, and they're two different. They're talking about two different things, since they have two different titles in the text. If you're going to use that argument, then you also have to remember that in Deuteronomy 18:18, there are two different parts as well. One's talking about the laws for the tribe of Levi, and the other's talking about the prophet. It's not necessary that they're linked, because we see throughout the Bible that in one chapter many different themes have been discussed. They're not always linked, and it's not always necessary for it to be linked. For example, if I have a classroom and one day I come in and say Peter is a good student, and the next day I come in and say John is a good student, and the third day I come in and say someone I say is a good student, so I don't actually give a name, is a good student, then it would not be right for you to say that by me not giving a name, I'm referring to John, because the context shows I'm referring to John. But of course, you can't make that claim because that would be an assumption. Again, this would be an assumption in itself to say that the tribe of Levi is the same brethren being referred to in Deuteronomy 18. The word used in Deuteronomy 18, 15, and 18 for brethren, the root word of that word is akh. So, and the same word is in Arabic as well. So the reason that this is interesting is because the same word is used to describe the Edomites in Deuteronomy 23:7. So this shows that the Akh can be referring to the Israelites, I no doubt. It can also be referring to the Edomites, and it can also be referring to the Ishmaelites, as shown in Genesis 16:12. It says that he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. The word used for kinsmen in the Hebrew again is Akh, and any commentary will show you that what it's referring to is Akh of the brethren of the Israelites. You can check a commentary yourself as well, and I will actually quote a commentary myself just to establish my own point. Okay, so we see an example of Ellicott's commentary for English readers. He shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. That is, he shall maintain his independence, and his descendants shall continue to exist as a free race in the presence of the other Abrahamic nations. So it's pretty obvious it's referring to the Jews, aka the Israelites. So that shows that the Ishmaelites also brethren according to scripture. Now it cannot be an Edomite because of Malachi 1:3. And so therefore, and only an Israelite and an Ishmaelite prophet is remaining. Deuteronomy 34:10 shows it cannot be an Israelite. And Christians say that because Muhammad ﷺ did not actually see God, he can't be the prophet like Moses, because Deuteronomy 34:10 says the Lord will know this prophet face to face. Moses himself did not see God, because as we see in the Bible, God says, "You shall not see my face and live." And the reference for that is Exodus 33:20. And of course, so that shows that even Moses did not see God, actually see God. Face to face could be a metaphor, a saying for how close someone is to God. And then we only have an Ishmaelite prophet remaining. Now, Itachi, how much time do I have left?
You have 49 seconds.
49 seconds. All right, that's enough. All right, so the last thing I'm going to go through is Deuteronomy 17:15 really quickly. So apparently Deuteronomy 17:15 shows that a king must be an Israelite over. So that means that if the Prophet is not an Israelite, he can't qualify. So the reason this is wrong is because if we look in the context of this verse, Deuteronomy 17:14, we see that it's referring to the Holy Land when it says, when you went, I will, and you possess it and dwell in it, the land that God will give you. So it's referring to the Holy Land. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not in the Holy Land. Therefore, that already invalidates this whole argument. And I have much more to say, but because my time is ending, I think I'll just stop there.
Seconds left, so
It's fine. I'll just end there.
Dang.
Right.
That was a
so
lot.
SIIG, are you ready?
Yeah, I guess I'll work with what I have. Okay.
Okay,
God bless you
so
all.
when you start, all right, yeah, all right, you ready?
So, yeah, going one by one, we're going to go into the Deuteronomy passages and deal with that. Before I actually provide a central point refutation to Seeker's point, I want to make something very, very clear. The text in Deuteronomy never actually outlines what the prophet like Moses is supposed to look like explicitly. Now, in order to back this up, I'm going to actually give you a quotation from the rabbinical sages that passed these traditions down, and is the reason why we have the Torah today. In Dereshot Haran, which is a commentary on the Torah and the theological mysteries thereof, there is a tradition that is spoken concerning the criteria for prophethood. Now, it says, in any event, it still remains to be explained why the Torah did not teach us the ways by which a true prophet may be discriminated, in reference to the prophet like Moses. It is possible, however, that these are alluded to in the expression such as I in Deuteronomy 18:15, a prophet from your midst, from your brothers, such as I. That is, one whose prophecy is substantiated as mine was. And it is well known that the prophecy of Moses, may peace be upon him, was substantiated in two ways. First, through the signs, which is suffice for the Jews, believing that the Lord had remembered them and had seen their affliction, a prognostication to all intents and purposes of their future deliverance. And then he gives another quotation of Exodus 4, verse 30 to 31. He then says, it is impossible for us to doubt that Moses' prophecy was authenticated. And so, to conclude, this quotation basically shows that you have to go to what the rabbinical sages said in order to see the criteria for the prophet like Moses. And I will get onto those rabbinical quotes in a second. Let's stick with what Seeker has said with the appealing to the Dead Sea Scrolls. He gave the text of, I believe it was 1-4QS. Yes, 1QS, chapter 9, sections 9 to 11. However, this doesn't actually talk about Deuteronomy 18:18. If you look at the Qumran manuscripts for the Dead Sea Scrolls, what you will actually see is a quotation that is actually messianic, that actually mentions Deuteronomy 18:18. See, the people that actually wrote down the Dead Sea Scrolls actually used this in a messianic way. For whatever reason, I can't actually send this. It's too long. I need Nitro to send this for whatever reason.
Sig, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I accidentally disconnected. Can you just go back
Sure.
like around 10 seconds, please?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. So in the Dead Sea Scrolls, basically, if you go to, I believe, sorry, just putting on my laptop now. If you go to Dead Sea Scrolls and you go to section, I believe it's 4Q175 in the 4Q text of the Qumran scripts, you will see that there are actual bunches of verses that are mentioned about the Messiah. Deuteronomy 18:18 is one of them. Okay, it actually says, they spoke to Moses saying, and he quotes Deuteronomy 3:28-29, you have heard the sound of the words of this people that they say to you, all they have said is right. If only it were given to me that they had the heart to fear me and keep all my precepts, I would raise up for them a prophet from among their brothers, like you, and place my words in his mouth, and he would tell them all that I command them. And it will happen that the man who does not listen to my words, that the prophet will speak in my name, he shall have a reckoning of him. And then he utters a poem that is Numbers chapter 25, verses 15 and 17. All of this is in the Dead Sea Scroll manuscript, in which it's actually a prophecy of the Messiah. It says, a star has departed from Jacob, and a scepter has arisen from Israel. He shall crush the temples of Moab, cut to pieces the son of Sheth. I will give a little piece of this manuscript right here. I think I can send this little piece. I don't know if I can send everything, unfortunately. Give me a second. Oh my gosh. What the heck? There you go. Okay. There you go. So this is the Qumran text. Everyone could please, if you could go, please go to debate chat. You will see the manuscript that I've just quoted. 4QT75. This is the 4Q175 in the Testimonia Qumran script. Okay, so that's going to be 4 capital Q175. This is a messianic script from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I think I've perfectly addressed that. Now, back to the point about the among your brothers. Itachi, how much time do I have left?
You have 10 minutes.
That's great. Now, if you actually look at the actual verbiage itself, it does not use the root word ach. The Hebrew language is very specific, and so the appealing to the Hebrew word is actually fallacious. See, you can use the word brother in many senses. The word ach can be like, oh, brother, what's up? Oh, my brother, hey, hey. So that wouldn't be sufficing enough to say that the word brother in Deuteronomy 18:15 that is used is specifically only going to be about Israelites, or specifically going to be about Ishmaelites. The actual phrase achechem is actually recorded 33 times in the entire Hebrew Bible. I'm going to send the Hebrew phrase now so that you can see, okay? This phrase, achechem, you have the pronunciation on the left and the actual Hebrew word on the right. This specific word from among your brothers or among your brothers in this specific way is used 33 times. I'll repeat 33 times in the whole Hebrew Bible. 32 out of those 33 times, it is only ever in reference to Israelite peoples. Okay? The phrase is mentioned 33 times, and in 32 of those times, it's only in reference to other Israelite peoples. The only one passage that does not refer to Israelites is in the book of Job, in which he actually says that the daughters of Job were going to be the fairest among their brothers, specifically their blood brothers that were related. So not once is it used for Ishmaelites or a nation as a whole other than Israel. The phraseology of the text itself forbids it to be about a non-Israeli. So we can establish firmly that the prophet like Moses most likely has to be an Israelite. Now, getting back to the point on the criteria, there are certain criteria that were revealed showing how the prophet like Moses is going to be that. We're going to get to that in a bit. I also wanted to talk about the point of the multiple messiahs. In rabbinic Judaism, you actually have a theory of Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David. Messiah ben Joseph was actually, or Messiah ben Yosef, at Mar Yosef, okay? Messiah ben Yosef was going to be a suffering servant who would be killed in what is called the Battle of Gog and Magog. And Mashiach ben David, or Messiah ben David, would actually, Messiah ben David would actually be a conquering king that would actually come down and establish the religion of God, affirm Torah in its completeness, and basically do really, really cool stuff. Now, for the Christian worldview, we can understand that Messiah ben Joseph would be Jesus Christ's first coming, in which actually, if you did not notice, Joseph was his legal father. So Jesus was literally the son of Joseph. And so, in this sense, we can actually see that Jesus' first coming was Messiah ben Joseph, and then the second coming would be Messiah ben David. Now, I'm going to show you Sukkah 52a, which is another rabbinic tradition that basically affirms the point that I said. It says, a prophecy eulogy at the end of the days, the Gemara asks, for what is the nature of this eulogy? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Dosa and the rabbis disagree concerning this matter. One said that this eulogy is for Messiah ben Yosef in the war of Gog for the land of Magog prior to the ultimate redemption with the coming of Messiah ben David. And one said that the eulogy was for the evil inclination that was killed. So you can actually see that there was some dispute amongst rabbinic scholars that basically affirm the point that I'm bringing today. So we can see that it was an actual viewpoint that was held. We see two figures, but this is a shadow. It is a literal shadow for the apparent truth of Christ. If you believe that Jesus is the Messiah, it is either Messiah ben Joseph or Messiah ben David. In the Gospels, we record that Jesus was supposed to be the son of David, meaning that he could also be the son of Joseph if he suffers on the cross, affirmed by the servant songs of Isaiah 53. Okay, now I have some time left, and I think I need to talk
You have
about
7
Ellicott's
minutes.
commentary. Yeah.
You have 7
Ellicott's
minutes.
commentary, although good, actually removes itself from the apparent context of which it was said. If we wanted to understand exactly how the earliest views of this was taught, we would go back to either rabbinical sages or the patristic writers or the early Christians or the early Jews to see how the prophet like Moses was supposed to be authenticated. In very much the same way, if I want to understand something about Muhammad, I would not go to some person that is writing in 2021 or in the 1800s. I would go to someone that wrote in the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries. So in Darashot Haran, again, it basically talks about, as I've said before, with this foundation of, I should actually quote the exact thing where it says, Moses had additional uniqueness. It can be impossible for us to doubt Moses' prophecy. Sorry. Ow. With this foundation that I've let before us, that we have to go back to the rabbinical sages, we have to turn to what these sages actually said about the prophet like Moses. All of the work that I'm going to quote right now is in Mishneh Torah, Foundations of the Torah, chapters 7 through 10. So I'm not going to give the exact citations, but actually this is an entire paper that was written by the traditional Jews. So Mishnah Torah, Foundations of the Torah, you can all check it out there. And I'm going to quote certain criteria that they list out. Now, in Mishnah Torah, it says that prophecy does not descend unless on a wise man, eminent in wisdom. Okay, and this is very important. I want to see if you guys can count whether Muhammad had every single one of these qualities. This is what the prophet like Moses needed to have. Prophecy does not descend save upon a wise man, eminent in wisdom, of sterling character, never subdued by worldly passion, but conquering it by an ever-present willpower, broad-minded and settled to the highest degree. A man endowed with all of these moral principles, of sound physique, when he enters the vineyard and is carried away with the current of these great and remote subjects, possessed of a mind ready to understand and attain, he continuing to gain in saintliness, separated himself from the general public, which follows the dark paths of the times, continuing to take care of himself, training his soul to heed no thought in idle affairs or in the vanities and fantasies of the time, but his mind must be constantly ready and directed upward. Immediately, the Holy Spirit will rest upon him. These are some of the criteria that Muhammad needs to fulfill. Now, if we take this to Jesus, he absolutely separates himself from society with all the quotes, for example, where it says, Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, or where he went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, or my personal favorite, when he took James and John and Peter to the mountain in which he was transfigured before them. So this is just one of the criteria, and I don't believe that Muhammad actually fulfills these, because I do not actually think that he was not subdued by worldly passion. See, in explanation of this verse, I'm going to show you something very important. The prophet like Moses is always distinguished to be a person that will separate himself from his wives. Okay. In Mishnah Torah, it says that the remaining upright at his post unaffected, all other prophets could not prophesy anytime they wanted. Sorry. We learned that all other prophets, when the spirit of prophecy departs from them, return to the tent for their bodily needs, and they all, like to the rest of the people, therefore they do not remain separated from their wives. But Moses, our master, returned not again to his erstwhile abode. He therefore separated himself forever from his wife. From like matters, his intellect became apprenticed to the rock of the universe. Glory never departed from him, and his countenance was like light, and his actual saintliness was like angels. Now, my question to the Muslim here today would be, is Muhammad on the same level of holiness as angels? Because Torah states that Moses was, in terms of saintliness. Now, we also understand that Moses separated himself from Zipporah and Gershom in order to start doing the work of God more effectively. Did Muhammad separate himself from his wives, completely forsaking them during the time of his prophethood, in order to establish more prophecy and to make sure that he was more connected with God? If not, he cannot be the prophet like Moses. And if so, please substantiate that. I'd also like to talk about, I believe, when he talks about hearing the voice of God. This is very important because actually we see that, hold on. We actually see that there is a point that Moses, our master, actually received revelation. People actually believed it. And this is very, very interesting, okay? Because the point that you made about Jesus hearing people actually affirmed Jesus as a prophet. In Mishnah Torah, it basically says this. I will send the quotation in there now so you can see. Wherein did they believe him? In being present at Mount Sinai. For our own eyes saw, and not through a stranger's, and our own ears heard, and not that of another, the flame, the thunder, and lightning. And he drew near the thick cloud, and the voice speaking unto him, we listening, saying, Moses, Moses, go and tell them thus and such. For so he also said that the Lord spoke with you face to face in the mounts out of the midst of fire. It is moreover said that the Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us. Whence from do we know that the standing at Mount Sinai alone is the evidence which makes this prophecy true without a shadow of suspicion? Because it is said, Lo, I come to thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak unto thee, and may also believe thee forever. Evidently, obviously, they did not believe him with an everlasting belief, but with a belief where there is afterthought and reflection. Now, what is the point of the verse that I've quoted to you today? This actually shows that the prophet like Moses would actually have his prophecy, prophetic nature, authenticated in the sight of people, with literal voices from heaven telling them, listen to this guy. Key point, the prophet like Moses would have to have had his prophecy authenticated by the Holy One, blessed be he himself. The people believed Moses, because the Lord came down and spoke with them directly. This is mirrored by Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, in which a voice from heaven, the flashings and the thunderous, obviously paralleling the account in Exodus, comes and says that Jesus is his beloved son. However, the contrary is the case for Muhammad. Islamic belief actually dictates that no one has heard the voice of Allah or witnessed him. Rather, Muhammad alone would bring down revelation. There is nowhere in the Quran or the entire Sunnah that can allude to Allah appearing to a mass population of people. In fact, Surah 44, verse 51 states that it is not possible for a human being to have Allah communicate with them except through inspiration or from behind a veil, or by sending a messenger or an angel to reveal whatever he wills by his permission. And he is surely Allah most high or wise. I'll actually put this in the text as well. Surah 44, 51. Gonna control C, control V that thing. There you go. And I'm gonna also give a commentary, and I wanted to make sure that this is authentic. The commentary from, I believe, Mufti Muhammad Shafi, he actually states, the verse above says that it was revealed in a response to a hostile Jewish demand. As mentioned by Bagel, Qurtubi, and others, the Jews asked the Holy Prophet, how can we believe in you whilst you neither see Allah Ta'ala, nor do you speak with him face to face? As Sayyidina Musa used to see. Oh, is that it?
Yes, your time is up. However, if you do need a few more seconds just for like a closing statement, I can give that to you.
Okay. The point is basically Jesus and Moses' prophetic nature were basically authenticated because everyone saw that God spoke to them. Muhammad is not so, because nobody actually heard voices from Allah saying, "Listen to my prophet Muhammad." In fact, Islam forbids it, so he cannot be the prophet like Moses. And I use my time.
All right, should I just start or wait? Just tell me when you set the timer. I'll start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
I'll reset the timer. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, it's
And
10 minutes by the way.
and hold on. Let me just quickly check the schedule to see how long this will be. This will be 10 minutes. Let me get a 10-minute timer. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. When you're ready, you can start. I'll start the timer.
All right. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So first of all, I'm saying I believe you may have sent a wrong verse because Surah 44:51 it just says but to those mindful of God will be in a safe place. It does not say anything you said. So I believe you may have sent the wrong verse. So apart from that, I've realized that your whole argument is based on Jewish sources and the Talmud, etc. I have one source myself, which actually Sanhedrin 11a7, which shows that the prophet like Moses will come out of Israel, and it's after the time of Zechariah, Malachi, and Haggai. So it reads, our rabbis taught since the death of the last prophets of Israel, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the Holy Spirit departed from Israel, even though they were still able to use the bat call. Once, when they were meeting in the upper chamber of Guriah's house in Jericho, a bat call came from heaven saying that there's one among you who is worthy that should rest upon. There is one among you that is worthy that Shekhinah should. I don't know how to say that. Shekhinah something should rest upon you like for Moshe
Yeah, Shekhinah.
Rabbeinu.
Shekhinah. Yeah.
Huh?
Shekhinah.
Or
Shekhinah.
Shekhinah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, should rest upon you like for Moses Rabbeinu, but Moshe Rabbeinu, but his generation does not merit it. The sages set their eyes upon Hillel the elder, and then he died. They said of him, the pious, the humble, the disciple of Israel. And this is actually under a particular chapter of this that is known as in the house of Ishmael. So it's clearly Ishmael is being referred to here, and since it's under the chapter in the house of Ishmael, and it shows that the Holy Spirit departed from Israel after, showing that the prophet like Moses will also come out of Israel. So that's the first thing I would like to say on that. And secondly, okay, now you just sent the verse. Let me just see this verse right now. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the one QA argument you had on the Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe that this is a bit of a weird argument now because wherever you got this from is clearly telling you something else. Because this is the link where I got it from, and the link I got it from shows that it's referring to Deuteronomy.
I can send you the book if you wish. Like I can send you the entire book.
Yeah,
Would
sure.
you like me to send? Yeah, I can ping the entire book that I have on the Dead Sea Scrolls. Basically, just go through all of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
What I'm
And I
saying
can
is
just ping
though
it to you.
that we both have different sources, so I believe that this argument's a bit weird.
Yeah, these go through the Qumran manuscripts of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So these are the Qumran manuscripts, and
You might as well just send it.
yeah. Let me just
All
get
right.
it up now. Give me a second, yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. I'll just continue.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
So let me just see this verse that he said now, so I can look at what it says now. Okay, and It is not possible for a human being to have Allah communicate with them except through inspiration from God. Alright, let me just copy paste this and see where this verse exactly is. 42:51. Alright, so let me read it then. In context. Alright, so Quran chapter 42 verse 51. It is not granted to any mortal that God should speak to him except through revelation from behind a veil or by sending a messenger to reveal his command, what he will. In Islamic, when it says veil, what it's referring to is like, of course, not seeing God directly. We believe no one's actually seen him directly, but we do actually say that people have heard his voice directly. We say that Moses did hear God's voice directly, and when it is veil, the form of the veil can just be as long as there's no one actually. He's not actually seeing God. Through a veil means that you're still hearing God's voice. It's just that you can't actually see Him. So in Islamic theology, you can't actually. No one's ever seen Him. You're correct in that, in saying that, but you are incorrect when you say that no one in Islamic theology has ever heard Him, because they have Moses and Muhammad, and those are two examples. I'm not sure if any others have in our theology, but those are just two that show that yes, they have actually heard his voice directly. So that's one. And uh, you were talking about akhihem. So as I said as well, the root word for akhihem is akh, and that's just brothers. So if this brothers being referred to apart from the Israelites, then that basically it doesn't matter if it's the exact phrase. You have the root word being referred to for other people as well. So you have being referred to for the Ishmaelites as well, and to the Edomites and the Israelites. So the root word clearly shows that that's what it's referring to, because the root word is that's what it's basically talking about. Akhihem, the root word is akh, and you find that in Genesis 16:12 and Deuteronomy 23:7. So since you have the root word being found somewhere else as well, it does not have to say word for word from among your brothers, because brothers is referring to something else. And that means that those that if that it can also be referring to the Ishmaelites as well. Because if Ishmaelites are brothers, then you can also call them from among your brothers, since they are brothers, of course. So logically, you can also call them brothers as well. And as I said about the Deuteronomy 18:15 to 18 thing as well, on the Dead Sea Scroll thing, we seem to have two conflicting articles on giving two conflicting views on two conflicting things. So I feel like the argument's a bit messed up at this point. It's a bit locked up right now. So I'm not going to go much into the argument now until I research more on that argument for seeing which article is really correct and etc. Okay, and let me see what else he said. In any event, still remains to be explained. Okay, and you said that they've given some things that this prophet must actually fulfill. You said that you don't think that he's fulfilled, that Prophet Muhammad SAW fulfilled where it says that he has to separate himself from the world. Oh, that's what you say, but we say he did. So, and what way do you mean he did not? And about the wives thing as well. Moses also had a wife. So you can't. Of course, he must have also spent time with his wife. So spending time with he didn't. Prophet Muhammad SAW was not always, like with his wife in that sense, but he was always teaching, etc. So again, that argument I don't really understand. Respectfully, I don't really understand what you mean by that. And to be honest, I think that's really everything that you've sent, to be honest. And as I was saying before, and as I said before as well, that your whole argument is really based on Jewish sources. And the reason I find this dangerous, and the reason I've never actually used Jewish sources before, even though I do have them, is because um, Jewish sources have sometimes contradict what we say ourselves. So again, it's pretty obvious that Jewish sources do conflict with Christian views. They also conflict with Islamic views as well. So to use Jewish sources to try and prove a Christian standpoint, so sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. So and you were referring to the Jewish source. Can't find the exact source that you were talking about, but it was basically showing that uh, that whenever this prophet comes, then there'll be voices saying that this is the prophet. Well, I'm not going to lie, it seems like it's a bit contradictory, because it's saying in verse 16 to 17, it's pretty obvious. It's saying that God's voice will not be heard when this prophet comes, and if God's voice is being heard, then it's a contradiction. So even if if a Jewish source says it, I value what you. I doubt that you would say that that Jewish source is from God directly. It's God inspired. But I'm pretty sure that you say that Deuteronomy 18:16-17 is God inspired. So since you say that's more God inspired, that is God inspired, and that I'm gonna have to take what you consider to be God inspired as a source. And since that source that you consider to be God inspired says that when this prophet comes, the God's voice will not be heard, then that's what I'm going to have to believe until it can be shown that that's not what the verse is saying, even though that is what my interpretation shows. That is what I see the verse is referring to. So,
Yeah.
to be honest, I don't know what else to say on this. So I think, Atachi, how much time do I have left?
You have 1 minute, 30 seconds left.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say, to be honest. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you can
So
start my time now.
okay. So just 3, 2, 1.
Okay. If everyone could go to the debate chat, please, and you can actually see what I actually said here. If you go to debate chat, I quoted Mishnah Torah Foundations of the Torah, and it actually says, "We learn that from all other prophets, when the spirit of prophecy departs from them, they return to their tent for bodily needs." See, the power of the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah and the glory of God, power of prophecy was so extreme that they were actually weakened from their like prophetic stuff, and so they had to like take time to rest, catch up with their family, and just chill like the rest of us mere people. However, they don't remain separated from their wives. They would go and speak to their wives and talk to their wives. Yes, the brother did note that Moses did have a wife, Gershom, Zipporah, and Gershom was his son. But actually, this stuff happens before Moses' prophetic calling on Mount Sinai. We actually see that Moses, our master, returned not again to his erstwhile abode. He therefore separated himself forever from his wife and from like matters. His intellect became apprenticed to the rock of the universe, euphemism for God, obviously. Glory never departed from him, and his countenance became adorned with rays of light. His saintliness was like that of angels. You try to talk about using the root word. You obviously understand that that is not how you would use it in the Hebrew language. Hebrew language is absolutely very specific. For example, the word chata is just the root word for sin, or the word kal is just the word for bad. However, you wouldn't use root words to denote meanings. This is why we actually have sentences. Okay. And in a sentence, there will be a phrase that is used. And you don't just look at the individual words, you look at the exact phrase and how that phrase would be used in relation to other verses in the Bible. As I said before, you didn't actually point out the fact, you didn't actually touch on the point that out of the 33 times that this word achecham is used, 32 out of these 33 times, it is always in reference to an Israeli name. It is only used once for Job, and even then, it is specifically blood relation. And so it must be kinsman or blood relation to the Israelites. Now, I actually want to touch on other points as well about why Muhammad cannot be the prophet like Moses. And I want to quickly say that I'm not here to prove whether Jesus, I can prove that whether Jesus is the prophet like Moses. However, we also understand that if you are going to quote the rabbinic source of Sanhedrin, it actually is speaking about the time of the apocryphal text, as in between Malachi and when Matthew starts to write. There's a 400-year gap in which prophecy is silenced, specifically because it's the forerunner to the Messiah. Now, if we talk about this prophecy, okay, there is another point that I want to make, and I want to see whether you can actually address this point. I can bring as many other sources as I wish, but if you can please address this one point, that'd be amazing. The prophet like Moses will have to prophesy in the personal name of the God of Israel, the Tetragrammaton. According to a sect in Man and God, or a section in Man and God, chapter 3, the name of God, section 223, prophets were permitted to and were supposed to use the divine name as a token of authenticated prophecy. It says the prophet knows God because God makes himself known to him in an act of revelation. He can call this God by an appropriate name, so on and so forth. Now, if you looked at the highlighted things which I put in bold, I actually didn't put in bold. It's fine. Someone just texted me. What's going on? Yeah, don't worry. So it says the prophet knows God because God makes himself known in an act of revelation. He can call God by a name appropriate to the divine revelation that is granted to him. However, this alone would not enable him to speak in God's name. God also has to make himself known to him by revealing an intention, a will, a desire, a divine word. The prophet knows God by the meaning of the word that is communicated to him. He can name God by this word, but he can speak in the name of God because the word is not communicated but also entrusted to him. Thus, thou shalt speak is the commandment. authority is invested in him, something of God is passed on to him. What shall we call it? It is something by which the prophet may call God a name. Something very similar to what God says of the temple is also said about the prophet. Of the temple, God says that he puts his name there, and of the prophet, he says, my name is in him. In another place, God says of the prophet, and I will put my words in his mouth. And the citations are there in the quotation. The words too constitute a divine name. God is made known by them. And God's name is in the prophet because God puts his word in his mouth. Thus, the prophet may speak in the word of God. Now, if you are thinking, hey, this isn't really clear, it's saying that he can use, okay? He can use. He just can use the name. It's made even clearer in Dereshot Haran, chapter 11, section 41, where it says, the Torah thus commanded us to rely on a prophet who prophesied in the name of the Lord. Rely on prophets that actually use the name of the Tetragrammaton. Now, I'm going to stop right here and say this. If you open up the text of the Quran, there is no mention of the Tetragrammaton at all. However, Jesus actually uses the Tetragrammaton, which is actually very, very interesting. If you go to the book of Mark, chapter 12, verse 29, Jesus actually quotes the Shema, where the Tetragrammaton is mentioned. So if you go to Mark, chapter 12, verse 29, it says, Jesus says, the first is, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. The Tetragrammaton is absolutely used here. Now, this is the most important thing. See, the Tetragrammaton actually kind of peters out of usage in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. And so by the 6th century, Muhammad would have no knowledge of what the Tetragrammaton sounds like. So, in order for the Tetragrammaton to actually have been used, God himself had to have revealed the Tetragrammaton to you. Muhammad never heard of the Tetragrammaton, therefore he can't really use it. And so if he doesn't use the Tetragrammaton, he cannot be authenticated as just a regular prophet of God. Not even the prophet like Moses, who would obviously have used or have had ample use of the Tetragrammaton. Okay. Now I'm going to go into some other factors that basically show how Muhammad cannot be a prophet like Moses. But again, Seeker, I would love for you to just address this specific point that I've brought up for you here. Now I'd like to ask you a question on how Muhammad absolutely received his prophecies, okay, and his revelations. According to Mishnah Torah, Foundations of the Torah, it says that all of them do not see the vision of prophecy, save in a dream, in a vision by night, or during the day when the sleep slumber falls upon him. As it is said, I became known to him in vision, and I speak to him in a dream. And they all, when they prophesy, tremble in all their limbs, and the strength of their bodies gives way. Their thinking power becomes unbalanced, and the sense of understanding alone remains open to grasp what it shall be seen. As it said of Abraham in Genesis 15:12, behold, a great trembling and darkness fell upon him, and as it said of Daniel, for my comeliness was turned into corruption, and I retain no strength. And so it is the rest of these prophets that have to have this. However, the prophet like Moses can be distinguished because Moses, our master, or what they call Moses Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was basically in a state of prayer 24/7, as in his mind was already fixated and to keep his limbs strong so that he would always be ready to receive prophecy, which is why it quotes that, for example, Moses said, I'm going to go and speak to God up on the hill now, because basically Moses was always in prayer mode, I would say. He was always in prayer mode, okay? And so the prophet like Moses, for example, Jesus actually says about how virtue passed out of him when there was a woman that touched him in the Gospels. Basically kind of showing that Jesus himself was also full of grace and truth, which is actually affirmed in the Gospel of John. So since Jesus is obviously full of grace and truth, he has the power to be able to stay ready to receive prophecy. There is no mention for Muhammad doing these things here. And we actually see that Muhammad receives revelation supposedly at any time. It could just happen at any time. And so if he wasn't only receiving prophecies in visions and dreams, that would actually show that Muhammad wasn't necessarily a prophet like Moses. Now, it also shows about the nature of the revelation of the prophets. It says that the rest of the prophets, some of them will relate the parable and the interpretation, and others will relate the interpretation alone. Still others relate the parable only without the interpretation as parts of the prophecies of Ezekiel and Zechariah, but all of them are prophesying in parables and metaphors. So every single prophet in the Bible, apart from Moses and the prophet like Moses, would have to pray in specific parables and sort of allude crude tongues. Since Jesus would be, as in the Christian worldview, the prophet like Moses, he would be able to speak clearly and enunciate things. He wouldn't be just telling weird divine mysteries. He would be speaking clearly on what is going on. Now, this is a very, very important thing. Okay, it says that prophets do not prophesy any time that they desire. They must prepare their minds, rest in a state of exaltation and hearty contentment, and in undisturbed solitude. Prophecy does not rest upon any prophet, either when he is in a state of delightfulness, or whether he was in a state of melancholy or in a state of indolence, but when he is in a state of delightfulness. Therefore, the disciples of the prophets had seen the harp, timbrel, flute, violin, meaning that they followed the path of prophecy and they did prophesy. For example, in the book of First Samuel, where Saul actually stumbles upon the sons of the prophets or the students of the prophets. These people are trying to get into the spirit of prophecy by praising God continuously. Now, my question to you is this: did Muhammad ever receive a revelation when he was angry? Did he ever receive a revelation when he was sad? Did he ever receive a revelation when he was annoyed? If so, he cannot necessarily be the prophet like Moses. Moses, our master, only received revelation because he was in a state of exaltation, praise, and piety towards God. I'm going to also talk about another point, and I wish that you can address all these points that I'm bringing.
You have only 1 second left, so
Prophet. I'm joking. That's it.
yeah. All right, so your time is now up. Now we will be moving on to the Q&A, correct? Because Seeker has already done his refutations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to the Q&A. I'm not exactly sure how this is intended to be done. It says 1 minute for questions and 3 minutes for answers.
Yeah, so like
it's
someone comes up and
10 minutes.
asks a question, and
Well,
then
not
like
like that. Not like that.
That's public Q&A. That would be a public
Yeah.
Q&A.
So
So I'm
how I
guessing
did it with how I did it with
I'm-
Chris as well. Like, I just, or for example, I ask you a 1 minute question at most.
oh, I
And
see. Oh,
yeah,
it's the back and forth. It's the cross examination.
yeah,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
oh, there's cross-ex. Okay, that makes sense now. So do you guys want, like, I guess, because it says like 4 minutes for each of you total, 1 minute for the person in question, you 3 minutes for the answer. So do you guys want 2 minutes to like formulate your questions?
I mean,
Yeah, no, that's fine. I have my questions prepared already. Well, not prepared, but I have actually questions that popped into my mind. Thank God, I've written them down.
Well,
Actually.
I'll give you guys a 2 minute timer both, just in
Yeah.
case you need some more preparation for questions.
Yeah. See,
Starting
you
in
can ask a
3,
question, man. I don't mind.
2, 1.
all right. So should I ask questions first then?
Yeah, you can ask questions. You'll have 1 minute to get them all in. So tell me when you're ready.
All right. So the first thing I would want to say is that why are you using only Jewish sources to back your claim up? As I said before, that
Yeah.
Jewish sources sometimes they go against you. Sometimes they'll actually contradict you really, really bad. So this is what I'm interested on because you have not.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we've touched on in the whole thing.
So what I want to make sure is that we can go to the closest understanding of what the prophet like Moses is about to enunciate right now. So when it talked about messianic things, for example, and why Jesus cannot be the prophet or why Jesus can't be the Messiah, if you actually read literature, for example, if you read the Rambam or and work by Maimonides, you'll actually see that basically he's very politically loaded and he just sends insults at Jesus. However, when we see about, for example, theological points on whether the prophet like Moses is mentioned, you will notice that there is no mention of either Muhammad or Jesus. It's just talking about the prophet like Moses as a whole. And so this can be actually more unbiased rather than biased in any sense. I have a question for you though. So still talking about the prophet like Moses, right? I would like to ask you, the miracles of Muhammad, okay? Um, do you accept that Muhammad split the moon according to Jamal al-Tirmidhi? Section.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, this is the problem, though. It says that the phenomenon of the moon splitting was a miracle, and that the disbelievers of Allah of Mecca asked the Messenger of Allah to produce a proof in support of his claim, and with the dispensation of Allah, he split the moon into two parts, and the miracle is verified. Okay, I'm
right.
going to send that in the debate text, and you agree with this prophecy, correct? That
Yeah,
that he absolutely split the moon.
yeah,
Now here's the problem: the prophets were not supposed to use miracles. Prophets like Moses specifically was not supposed to use miracles as a proof of his prophethood. In fact, it was actually the opposite. See, the miracles of Muhammad were only supposed to be responsive to necessities. So Muhammad, in a sense, did not actually need to prophesy. Thank you for clarifying that you do believe that he split the moon, but by this he actually removes himself from the criteria of being a prophet. I will send the quotation by the way from the source as well. Here you go. It's again in Mishnah Torah, Foundations of the Torah.
See,
Um,
your time for the question is now up, and we'll begin Seeker's 3 minutes, 3-minute time of response. As well, is that your only question? Because if you have more, I can give you a few seconds just to ask.
yeah, no,
It's one
it's
question
fine.
at a time, right? So
Okay.
Yeah, go on, Seeker.
So
Yeah.
you have no more Seek. You have no more questions.
Yeah. No, it's like
Okay. We'll now be
Muhammad.
commencing the 3-minute response, starting now.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, go
all
on,
right.
Seeker.
So you're talking about the splitting of the moon, and apparently the prophet like Moses only does it from necessity and etc. So one, I'm interested, where did you get this from? Because that's one of my actual questions to you as well in your own time. Could you answer that? Where exactly did you get this from? And uh two, you said that the Aramaic of Mark 12:39 is Yahweh, and you can use the Peshitta to actually see yourself. It's not. I'll send it. I'll send the images to you as in the chat as well.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Oh, as
So
in like, why did I use Mark 12?
no, like
And
apparently you said it says in Arabic. Apparently you said it says Yahweh.
Jesus does cite the tetragrammaton, is what I'm saying. See, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4.
Sorry, but can you like intro say this in your own time?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
All right, sorry. All right. So I'll just send that there. So if you could just respond to that in your own time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So about the about the splitting of the moon. I'm interested in this argument because one, as I said, I want to know where you got this from, and two, you said something about a necessity. Well, wouldn't if he didn't do this, then it was from the disbelievers of Mecca, right? So he did this to show them that of course he's a true prophet. If he did not show he was a true prophet, then of course he wouldn't be a true prophet. He'd just be a false prophet, of course. So again, it's his job to want to convey the message, and you can only people will only believe in your message if you can actually show that you are a true prophet. So to actually start getting people to start believing in him, he has to give some sort of confirmation that he is a true prophet, and that's what the splitting of the moon was intended to do, to show that he is the true prophet because of that. And you also have places where you see this as well. So for example, you see this in Bukhari 3637, and you also see this in an India. I believe it was in an Indian king's book as well. I don't have it
Yeah.
on me right now, but if I can find that, I think I'll send that to you after the debate because it's somewhere in my notes. It's somewhere deep. I'll send it to you after. If after the debate, if you could just remind me to send that to you as well.
Yeah. Sure thing. Yeah,
And
sure thing.
all right. And we have authentic Sahih eyewitness reports from Ali ibn Abu Talib, Zubayr ibn Mut'im ibn Nawfal, Anas bin Malik, Abdullah bin Abbas, Abdullah bin Umar, Abdullah bin Murud, etc. So those are just some eyewitnesses to that. Just in case you're going to say that say that there's no eyewitnesses to that.
No. I believe that. I'm saying
That's my
if
whole question.
this. Oh, sorry.
No, I said that's my whole question. You can answer now.
Yeah. So this is the problem. By affirming that Muhammad did this specific miracle, he actually excludes himself from being the prophet like Moses. See, the more evidence you give that Muhammad split the moon, the worse it becomes for Muhammad to be the prophet like Moses. See, if Muhammad never did the miracle of the splitting of the moon, sure they would disbelieve, but it wasn't like their lives are going to be absolute. They are going to be killed on the spot if they didn't. Specifically, the reason he did this miracle, as I've cited before, was because they just disbelieved. Now, again, if we actually look at, for example, Moses, when he did his miracles, when Moses, for example, when they were starving, Moses had to bring bread from heaven. So if he didn't do this miracle, the Jews would actually die. In the same way, for example, if Jesus didn't feed the 5,000, those 5,000 people were going to starve and be hungry for the rest of that day. So they had to do that thing. For example, if Jesus didn't cast out this demon at that specific time, that person would die or be killed. So all of these miracles are being done for a necessity. Okay. Now, as for Muhammad, this miracle of splitting the moon, he just wanted to do it to show that he was a prophet, but that's not how miracles were supposed to be done for prophets like Moses. So actually, if I send the quotation out, it says Moses our master was not believed in Israel because he delivered tokens. For whosoever bases his belief contingent upon tokens retains suspicion in his heart. For it is possible that the token was delivered by means of enchantment and witchcraft. Like what Jenna said before in her previous debate, I think she said that miracles can be like, for example, an alchemy to a chemist. But all the tokens delivered by Moses in the wilderness were responsive to necessity and not as a testimony for prophecy. So if you affirm that this is a testimony of Muhammad's prophethood, this kind of contradicts you again. Now, we can say that in one sense, miracles were good, great, but we're not going to say that Jesus' prophethood was contingent on the fact that he did miracles that broke normalcy. In fact, that would contradict who Jesus was as a person. I'll send the quotation here now. There you go. By the way, if you're asking where I got these sources from, I actually poured through these things myself. Like, I didn't go and ask people, what did the Jews say about this? The only time I ever asked people was, for example, I would go to Muslims and ask them, hey, what is your view on Muhammad in this thing? Or what is your view on Muhammad here? Could you send me authentic sources here? Specifically so that I don't misrepresent Muhammad. Again, you kind of strawmanned my point in which you were saying that there were only certain things that they were being done. Again, no. Yes, Moses also had a wife, and other things happened aside from that. So yeah, that's my response. My question, actually, I have a question that I want to ask you, Sika. And please, you didn't actually talk about the point of the tetragrammaton again, because obviously Jesus responded to Hebrews 6:4. What I want to say is this. Just give me a second. Torah in its completeness, as in like he affirmed that the Torah was not corrupted, and he never enunciated any laws of the Torah.
Could you repeat that question?
SIIIG, you have
So did
SIIIG,
So the
go ahead.
question is, so did Muhammad ever say that the Torah was completely full? He didn't innovate, make any sort of innovations, for example, abrogate verses and say, oh, we don't have to do this anymore. Like, we don't have to keep the Sabbath day, for example, or we don't have to do the Feast of Tabernacles.
All right, so the question is that did Muhammad SAW say that the Torah is corrupted? Is that the question?
And did he, like, for example, abrogate laws from the Torah?
All right, so I'll answer that question, but alongside that, I just want to see some. I just want to add on something as well. So
Yeah, sure.
you about the miracle thing that you only do it
Mhm.
in necessity. I would like to say
Mhm.
1 Exodus 7:10. I believe that's a reference.
Mhm.
Was it a necessity first of all to actually throw Moses' rod down and turn it into a snake, because that wasn't really a necessity. And was Jesus's raising of the dead, uh, was it really a necessity? I believe that was just done to make them believe
No.
that he was a prophet. So again, was that really a necessity, as you call whatever you call a necessity? Would that count as that as well? And
Yeah.
well, in terms of your actual question, there are some laws, because it's a different covenant. There are some laws that were changed, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did actually in the hadith and in the Quran, like chapter 2 verse 79, it shows that the Quran's corrupted. The Torah is corrupted as well. So that's really enough, to be honest. And another thing on the miracle thing, Jesus turning water into wine, was that also a necessity, or was that just done to make them believe? So my question and my answer is in that as well. If you
Okay.
could, and last thing, could you please elaborate on that question a bit more, because I'm still not understanding the question fully.
Okay.
All right.
Turning water to wine. So you talked about turning water to wine. Sorry, I just need you to interact with me here. So you talked about water to wine. You talked about Exodus 7:10, and you also talked about Jesus raising the dead, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, for example, let me just deal with the water to wine. If you actually read the account, if you go to John chapter 2, by the way, since we're not talking about whether Jesus is the prophet like Moses, let's not divert, but I'll just quickly answer this point. Yes, Jesus' miracles were of a necessity. Jesus turning the water into wine was not because he wanted to prove them to be a prophet. In fact, he actually specifically told them not to let anyone know that he did this thing. It was to make sure that the customs were kept and to make sure that obviously the party could keep going. So he had to do it. Otherwise, the wedding would actually be a massive failure. And since the entire town was there, obviously it would be very, very embarrassing for the people. This is one of his earliest miracles as well. So as a kid, not as a kid, but like still with his mom. Exodus chapter 7, verse 10. If you go to Exodus chapter 7, verse 3, it gives the context as to why he used these miracles. It says, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt and bring my hosts, my people, with the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt. the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from them. So the necessity of these miracles was not to prove that Moses himself was a prophet, but to really establish that God exists, or God is the God of the world, essentially. Because Pharaoh thought that he was
Alright,
God.
SIIIG. Alright, SIIG, try to wrap up your answer because the timer for the total 10 minutes is up now.
Well, it actually
I apologize, yeah.
I actually have one more question. Do you mind if I ask one more question after this?
Sure, go ahead, sure.
All right, Sig, just finish your answer. I just have one more question after that.
Yeah, obviously raising from the dead, yeah, Jesus had to do it to fulfill all of righteousness, not to prove that he was a prophet. Couldn't care less. He
All
couldn't care
right.
less, sorry.
The last thing I wanted to say is I didn't know that was what you mean by that's what you mean by necessity, because I can say the same, almost say the same thing actually, because when he split the moon, I can easily say that if he didn't do that, then they would have known he was a false prophet, and then they would have easily he would have been starting attacking all of the believers and started killing them all, because they besides we
He
find
would
from
have
Islamic
killed them
history
all.
as well that the reason that some of them refrained was because they believed that he actually was a prophet. But if it was proven that no, he is not a prophet, he didn't actually split the moon, it was just fake, it didn't even happen, then they would have had no problem. All of them would just be killing and attacking. So that's also a necessity if you think about it.
No, it wouldn't actually be in the same sense. No, not at all. See,
Alright,
the
SIIG,
fact that you
I'll
sorry.
give you 2 minutes to answer this, is that alright?
That's fine. Okay, the fact
Okay.
that you actually agreed with what Jemaat al-Tirmidhi actually said about to produce a proof of his claim to be a prophet. That means that the actual purpose of him splitting the moon was not necessarily a necessity, but was just to say, Muhammad, I'm trying to prove myself. So if you agree with what I stand with Jami al-Tirmidhi, you also agree that Muhammad's miracle was to try to prove he was a prophet, which goes exactly against what a prophet like Moses was trying to do. So there was no necessity in that action. Again, say for
Am
example,
I
if
allowed to
Muhammad never
respond
did
to
these
that, or
miracles, so say for example, if Muhammad never did this miracle, people would just disbelieve in Muhammad. That's okay. People disbelieved in Jeremiah. People disbelieved in all of the prophets. Exactly. The actual Israelites didn't believe in Moses all the time. It's just that he was an outlasting reflection. They're like, dang, he actually was, right. Um, but no,
am
they
I allowed
wouldn't
to
use
respond to
miracles
this,
in that
or
sense. Yeah, sure, yeah, sure.
all right. So, uh, the main reason is actually, of course, as you said as well, you quoted me by saying that to prove he's a prophet. But if they disbelieved in him and all of them knew that this guy is false, then the context is actually different, because they wouldn't have started killing, because they would have actually started attacking them, and they would have started killing like literally everyone there. And if you read Islamic history, then the stuff that they did to the believers as well, like the first martyr of Islam,
Could you
they took
cite
a spear.
if they didn't do that? What would happen? Could you cite that this is what would happen if they didn't believe, if he didn't
All
do that
right,
miracle?
I'll do that. All right, so if he didn't do that miracle, that would show that he's false, because that's what they asked, and he couldn't do it. Then now, if that shows he's false, then they would start attacking them. And I'll give you an example of what type of stuff they would do. The first martyr of Islam, what happened to her was, it was a woman. What happened to her was they took a spear and they basically put it right up. As I'm not, I don't want to get too much into it, but they literally just did that, and they did that to her family as well. Just, and that was while they knew that he was, that's what they did to one of the families, and other people refrained because they were scared that this guy's, that we know this is true, that's why we're not going to attack. But if they also knew that this guy, that he is actually false, like people like Umar radiallahu anh, he was one of the strongest people at that time, but he became Muslim because he knew he was true. If he found out that he's false, then he had proper people behind him as well that would have attacked him instantly, and he would have easily killed the prophet and everyone. And of course that would have of course been a necessity then.
Okay, so in Jamaat al-Tirmidhi, it doesn't say if you don't prove yourself as a prophet, we are going to kill you.
It's obvious though that
No,
of
you
course
can't say
they
that.
would
You
have done
have to
that because
show
they were
that
already
citation.
doing that.
You have to show that citation, of course. So if you are trying to make this claim, for example, every single claim that I've said, I have substantiated it time and time again. I haven't tried to say anything that I haven't brought sources for. You have done a lot of saying claims, but not actually providing substantial
The
sources.
thing is,
For
but they were
example,
already doing it though, that's the
generalizing
thing.
the fact that, generalizing the opinion that people would have killed Muhammad in that sense. You got to send a citation that if Muhammad did not do this specific miracle, they were going to kill him.
They were already trying their best while knowing he was true. So if they found out he was false, of course they would have tried even harder.
Oh, of course. Then you can just send that citation that if he didn't do this miracle, they were going to kill him, correct?
What do you want me to send the citation for where they're already trying to kill him?
No, I want the citation for where they were going to kill him if he didn't do this miracle, because that's specifically going to answer my question.
It's common sense that they would try to kill him if they're already trying to kill him while he's true, while they know he's true.
I don't think the common sense that you speak of is so common, because you cannot necessarily infer something from the text that doesn't speak on that. Specifically, it says in Jamaat al-Tirmidhi that the phenomenon of the moon splitting was a miracle that the disbelievers in Mecca would ask the angel of the messenger of Allah. There were other believers at the time. Am I correct?
Hang on. First of all, how much time do we have left to touch, by the way, just so I can give my answer accordingly.
It's been dragging out for a fair time. It seems
to be fair, I don't mind this.
It seems like we've kind of went out of the format because SIIIG answered during his time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do
Yeah,
you want
so
to just
I'll
keep the free
I think we just end it here then, because it's getting a bit.
Yeah, I would end it now, but it seems like SIIIG still wants the citation. So here's what I'll propose. I'll give you 1 minute to get the citation. I'll give SIIG, if he wants to, depending on how long it is, I'll give him, maybe 1-2 minutes to respond to it.
But the thing is that there's no specific citation showing that I'm going to kill you if you don't do this. I'm just using my head here to show that if you were already doing it. That's why I say we end it here, because that's what I'm going to keep on saying.
Okay, so no citation.
There's no direct citation as you want.
Alright, so then we'll be moving on to the conclusions, in which Seeker will have his conclusion, and then SIIG will have his conclusion, and then we will move into the public Q&A, where we take people from the audience onto the stage, and they'll be able to ask both of you questions.
Alright, so
Seeker, you ready?
Yeah.
Alright, start when you're ready. I'll start it.
Alright, Bismillah. So this is now the end of the debate, and I'm thankful for SIIG to actually agreeing to this debate as well. And we actually I myself have learned something new here. I hope SIIG's also learned something new here as well. Just some post-debate thoughts. One, I would just like to say that some of the things that I don't necessarily agree with everything that SIIG said, and I wish that there was maybe some more time that we could have had to actually clear up. But unfortunately, I myself have to go in 10 minutes as well, so I won't be able to do that even if there was more time. But I hope that we can redo this debate again, because there's definitely some questions here that I have left unanswered, and I believe SIIG has also left unanswered. So I hope we can do this again another time. But overall, I believe it was a pretty fruitful discussion as we intended. Since I learned something myself, I hope SIIG also learned something as well. And as I said, I hope we can do this again. And to be honest, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll give my closing statement now, actually. God bless you all for coming, in this discussion, I wanted to try to spread some light on what the prophet like Moses had to be. As you can see, that there is a myriad of criteria. In fact, I didn't actually get to touch on many of the things that I wanted to go through. I wanted to go through every single criteria and basically show how Muhammad would not have actually fulfilled certain criteria that are here, and how he actually kind of lacks in being the prophet like Moses. And I hope that you would understand that actually all of the citations that I've given were actually authentic. I haven't actually presented any sort of weak hadith. I haven't presented any sort of verse in the Quran that was false, except for that one time when I quoted Surah 44 verse 51. I think that was the incorrect citation from me. That verse is in the Quran. You can just copy paste that into a Google link or something, and you can just find the exact verse for me. I'll be thankful for that. By the way, I try to take the approach that I can try to see if I can find the absolute classical understanding of what the prophet like Moses, or just the prophet of God in general, what he was meant to look like. And I was trying to break down the Islamic notion that miracles prove prophecy, because even demons can do miracles. We have recordings in the New Testament itself where there was a girl that actually had the gift of prophecy from the god Apollo, most likely because of the Greek context. Paul actually rebukes this demon and sends her out, which is very strange. We also have, for example, Biliam or Balaam, who basically actually diverted the people away from Israel. He's actually some sort of anti-prophet of Moses, because actually he leads the people away at the Valley of Peor. And so in all these things, I've tried to make sure that I've provided correct citations. And I think for the Christian view, and also for the classical view, the rabbinical view, I have shown that Muhammad absolutely cannot be the prophet like Moses. I do thank Seeker for actually taking this debate that way. It was really cool of him. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Alright, so are we
If
going to move it to the
both of you
public Q&A
don't,
now?
Yeah, you
if
want
both
to do
of
the
you
Q&A?
don't mind, I would like to say something.
Alright.
All right, yeah, and I agree with a lot with what SIIG said. How like, thank you very much, Seeker. You know, it takes courage to come out here and not necessarily know what the other opponent's arguments are going to be. You know, it takes courage to do that live. You know, on a voice chat and everything.
I'm
So
happy
thank
that
you for
SIG
coming.
actually used arguments that are not so common, because now I actually have something to actually some research on more. So hopefully next time I'll actually be more prepared to answer these questions.
Yeah, man.
That's what it's all
Yeah.
about. And SIIG, thank you too for coming into this server where there's a lot of Muslims here. There's a predominantly Muslim server. So thank you for having the courage, coming here, and thank you to the staff team for having me as a moderator for today. It was delightful, moderating the debate and everything. I hope I did well. And that I guess the final thing I'd like to say is I think both debaters put on a good show today. All right, with that being said, we will go on into our public Q&A. We'll just go for I'll try to clear out everyone's questions. I'll try to get everybody in the request section, but if it just keeps going on, I think I'll probably
ask
put
the
it
first
at
one?
max like 15-20 minutes.
Can I ask
Yeah,
the
you
first
can
one
ask.
if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is for SIG, and my question is this.
Mhm.
So one of the like parameter you put for the prophet like Moses
Mhm.
is that performing miracles to prove prophethood would contradict who the prophet like Moses is. So since this debate is centered around the prophet like Moses, my
Mhm.
question to you is, who is the prophet like Moses?
Mm.
And the prophet that would fit the parameters which you presented in this debate. Who is that prophet?
I would say
Since you
obviously,
claim it's not Muhammad.
yeah, I would say that first of all, my belief on who the prophet like Moses is isn't necessarily conducive for the debate. But just for the sake of answering the question, I will answer the question. I do believe that Jesus Christ is the prophet like Moses, and the reason for this is as follows. See, the parameters that I gave were specifically not to try to prove whether Jesus was a prophet like Moses. It just so happens to coincide. Through my research, on researching how the prophet like Moses was supposed to move and act, it just seems so weird that Jesus actually kind of mirrors this in every sort of way. There are also other instances in which Jesus does mirror things that Muhammad does. For example, not Muhammad, sorry, that Moses does, like, Moses raising a serpent up for a faith exercise, and Jesus himself raising himself up, that whosoever believes in him will have eternal life. In fact, Jesus actually quotes that exact passage, which is very funny. Um, for example, if we talk about like miracles not being an authentication of prophethood, the reason to do so is that basically the early understanding was that anyone could necessarily do a thing that could break normalcy. This wasn't necessarily a thing that was exclusive to God and God alone. There were other demons and spirits that could be, for example, have the gift of prophecy, like I mentioned with Paul. There are other things that could happen, like having super strength. There are actually Greco-Roman myths in which gods and goddesses were able to bestow mystical powers, and so we didn't need a primordial deity to be able to substantiate that. And so the breaking of normalcy doesn't always mean that it's from God. It can just mean that a person knows how to break normalcy.
Thank you.
It's all right, man. God bless you, bro.
Sig, someone does not want to speak, but they have a question for you. All right,
Sure.
it's all right. So it's from this guy called Megamind. I'll just read out his question to you.
Mega mind.
Yeah. Alright, I'll just say the question, all right, and
Mhm.
you just try not. All right. So you said that the prophet like Moses has to separate himself from his wife. It contradicts Christianity too, since Jesus never separated himself from his wife, since he wasn't even married to separate himself. This is a
Okay.
question from Megamind.
Yeah. So, Megamind, the reason why I focused on the separation from the wife was basically, if you actually read the citation that I gave, it wasn't just from the wife, it was and like things. So, for example, worldly things and attachments in the world that would keep you focused. For example, focusing on business or trying to get like a degree in something. But the prophet like Moses would actually distinguish himself from that. He would separate himself to pray and to like try to ascertain and connect to God. There are many places in the Gospels in which Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives to pray, or where he goes to like other gardens and secret locations to separate himself from his disciples. There are many times in which Jesus silently slips away from the crowd where people were trying to pursue him, not only to try to escape for his life, but also to try to separate himself again onto God to pray. And so, yeah, Jesus would fulfill that. Muhammad obviously is not so. He had to literally lead the Ummah to victory in his lifetime, and so he wasn't necessarily able to separate himself
society to be able to focus solely on God like Moses was. It's actually one of the reasons why Aaron was such an important figure, and why he was also seen in some respects as a prophet, even though he didn't actually fulfill prophetic ministry in the sense of Moses. Because he was the prophet's prophet. So Aaron would announce things to the children of Israel. Aaron would speak to the children of Israel on the behalf of Moses, who again was communicating with God. So I hope I answered your question.
And as well to the audience, if
Well,
maybe you don't want to go on to VC chat, like you don't want to come up here, you can DM your question to either me or LPT, and
I
we
won't be
will
able to
read
see
out
your
your
question, by
question.
the way, because
Yep.
I'm playing Subway Surfers right now, so I won't be able to see anything.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, don't message me or LPT, one of the moderators. Okay,
Thank you.
so another question, another
Mhm.
text question is from Armor.
Oh, cool.
He says you put a lot of authority on rabbinic interpretation. What would you say
Cool.
about rabbinic interpretation that goes against you? For example, Jewish commentaries like the Chemush Jewish commentary that
Yeah.
states the sages note the Torah statement and Deuteronomy 34:10. Hear that in Israel there will never be a prophet like Moses.
Yeah.
Implies that among the non-Jewish nations there could be such a prophet. As well,
Yeah.
the Jewish Study Bible acknowledges
Mhm.
this contradiction that is created when Deuteronomy 18:18 is taken as a reference to an Israelite prophet. Never again note the discrepancy between the perspective of this verse and divine promise to Moses that the line of prophetic succession will continue in the future. I'll raise up a prophet for them like yourself. These interpretations would contradict your statement about the prophet having to be an Israelite. So how would you reconcile with this? From
Okay, so the
Armor.
rabbinical. So actually, it's a very good thing that he quoted that specific rabbinical interpretation, because actually he was trying to affirm how actually people would say that this is a misunderstanding of whether the prophet like Moses can be in Israel. The actual prophet in Israel arise was actually an attribution to Joshua, who the Spirit of the Lord had been raised upon him. I think either Rash or Rabbeinu Bachya actually quotes this specifically. Because of the prophet like Moses would actually still be an Israelite, the rabbinical sages understood that this wouldn't have been at their specific time, and so they had no problem in saying that, for example, other nations would do. But this is actually a very important thing. Prophecy was only restricted to Israel. If you read midrashes, for example, on Deuteronomy 15, I think if you read Midrash Tanchuma, it actually basically says that only Israelites would necessarily be prophets. The whole point of this was to basically show that rabbinical understandings wouldn't conflict because rabbinics talk with each other. And so, say, for example, there's a view that one person would posit, they can also argue with each other and say, hey, maybe we should look at it like this. It's basically how academia, especially ancient academia, that's how it works. So, yeah, no, this wouldn't be a contradiction to our view. It would actually be pretty okay.
Okay, so I believe Armor may have a follow-up.
Yeah, sure. Oh, no, I couldn't get the power up. Yeah, go on.
I'll wait if he has a follow-up. If he doesn't, he can message me. All right, no follow-up.
Okay, I do have a question for SIIIG. So, I just wrote it down. If miracles are not, I'm just trying to explain.
I'm not.
Okay, so how do you establish the
No, you're a
prophethood of
horrible person.
someone
Hey,
outside
don't interrupt each other.
scripture?
I'm sorry, but he's a very
Okay,
horrible
SIIG,
person.
stop avoiding my question.
Wait, hold
How
on.
do you
Very,
establish
very
the
horrible
prophethood
thing.
of someone outside of scripture? So let me formulate my question until he's back, okay? If miracles are not proof for prophethood, then how do we establish the prophethood of someone? This question is not related to authority, but to reason. How do we establish the prophethood on the basis of reason? You might say revelation, but how do we know that those are not just events created by demons, so that Moses was speaking actually to a demon on the
I do
mount?
not
How
want to
do we
answer.
establish prophethood? That's the question.
I do not want to answer a question from you because
Okay, so you cannot answer the question.
you can type the question to someone else and have them speak.
Answer my question. Stop
Do not
avoiding
answer
the
the
question. How do we
We're
establish
Okay,
allowing.
wait.
prophethood?
Okay, wait.
This
Okay,
is
wait.
related to
Shall I ask?
prophethood,
I'll
so
just ask a
answer it.
question. Okay,
You can
wait. I'll
ask
just
it.
ask.
You can tell someone else your question and have
Okay.
This
them
Tell you.
debate is related to prophethood,
I
so
am not
answer my
answering
Okay.
question. How
Okay. Wait.
do we
your
Wait.
establish
Okay. Wait.
prophethood?
Abdullah.
Wait.
Hold on. I
Okay.
have my reasons, okay? Jenna is not a good person. She can take the question and give it to someone else for them to ask
Okay.
in the exact same format.
Okay. I'll ask a question. Okay.
her.
I'll ask a question.
Sure.
I'm gonna try to summarize it as best as possible. But okay. What what is the establishment for prophethood then? And you can't go to Revelation because Revelation can just be forged or it can be from demons or whatever. So how do you establish whether someone's prophethood is legitimate or not?
Yeah, well, someone.
And the thing is, why
Mhm.
is prophethood? Sorry, why is miracles not not like a good
Oh,
basis,
not like a
a
token of
legitimate
prophet.
basis, like a token of proof? Let's say.
Yeah. Okay. So one for
I might
instance.
have missaid her question, by the way.
Okay.
So
One of no, no,
if
no.
I did
If
miss
you
her
could tell,
question,
yeah.
okay,
Could
the
you
question
tell
is, how do we establish prophethood? She said.
Sorry. Could you tell Jenna to exactly type out the exact statement she
Okay,
wants to answer that
Jenna,
statement?
DM me.
But
Okay,
the thing is, but
Jenna,
here's the thing.
DM me the exact question.
I want to make this absolutely clear. I will not, and I repeat, I will not answer a question from her mouth. She's disgusting as a human being. She's a horrible person.
Okay, that's it.
She's
Okay, that's it.
insulted my God. I will not.
Okay, that's it. We'll just leave it as that then.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'll do Bill. Okay. So, has she sent the question or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna read it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
She said, if miracles are not proof of prophethood, then how
Mhm.
do we establish the prophethood of someone? This question is not related to authority, but
Yeah.
to reason. How do we establish prophethood on the basis of reason? You might say revelation, but how do we know that those are not just events created by demons to deceive others?
Yeah, sure. So you can establish a prophethood. Say, for example, if a person that has already been established as a prophet, this is just a quick thing. If someone has already been established as a prophet actually says this guy is a prophet or he's going to take over from me, then there is no need for them to be tested in terms of like other sorts of signs and stuff and wonders and their character and moral virtues. So we don't need to necessarily do that. The reason I say this is because the rabbinical Jews at the time in the Second Temple Judaism, who were under the school of Shammai, they actually saw John the Baptist as a prophet. And so when John the Baptist affirms Jesus as being mightier than him, he is affirming Jesus' prophethood. Now, there is no record of Muhammad being affirmed as a prophet by another prophet, at least not to my knowledge. I don't think there is another prophet of God that says Muhammad is also a prophet of God. Unless there is some weird hadith you guys can pull out, then that would be pretty interesting. Now, also, I would like to say that the reason why we cannot usually prove that there are miracles is specifically because of what Jenna said. From reason, we can actually also affirm that there are some people of exact sage character that would be able to fulfill the criteria of being a prophet. One of them being, for example, they would separate themselves from society in order to focus on God more, being apprenticed to the rock of the universe himself. Jesus does this, Moses does this, all of the other prophets did this, Obadiah did this specifically. Jeremiah did this, he was in prison for a long time. Hosea did this, Amos did this, Micah did this, Zephaniah did this, Zechariah did this. Muhammad does not do this. He specifically has to see over his people because he's the leader of the Ummah, so he could not do that. He would love to, probably, if he was trying to be a prophet of God, but he could not. Even David had to separate himself from society and allow Joab to basically run the army because David specifically actually used to separate himself. For example, there was a time where kings go to battle, and instead of going to battle, David remains in Jerusalem. And some can posit, hey, he was probably trying to pray to God, but obviously he uses that opportunity to sin. And yeah, obviously David separates himself to listen to Psalms and so on and so forth. So yeah, basically by the way that they are characterized as people, we can basically tell certain criteria. By the way, all the criteria I've mentioned basically affirm prophets of God. You can look at all the prophets of God. Jesus himself obviously affirms these things, which is great for us. Muhammad doesn't affirm some of these things. The only thing I would say that Muhammad absolutely affirms is probably if he had sound physique, because he was a war person, he was a warrior, so he probably did have sound physique, as in like he was like a strong person. So I hope that answered your question, bro.
All right, next up we'll have Saint John of Damascus.
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just before like I start, I believe you guys did a great job at debating, but I have a question for Seeker of the Truth. When you guys were like talking about the splitting of the moon, and there was like this non-Islamic source, the Indian king, I was doing research like about this Indian king that saw the moon splitting, right? And actually, as I'd done research, because I was doing a research for, like a week, I actually found out that this is actually a myth that was like formulated in the 15th, 16th century. The earliest known source of this Indian king existing and seeing this miraculous event, the moon splitting, was actually in 1510 by Duarte Barbosa, which was a Spanish conquistador and a Spanish trader that used to trade with the Ottomans and the Indians back then. So, if an Indian king really saw this, is there any proof of this Indian king seeing this before the 15th century? And is there any proof from Indian sources that say that he really saw this?
As I said during the debate, that my notes were a bit scattered at this point, so I will. Are you in the server? So whenever I find the actual evidence for this, I'll tag you and SIIIG, just so that I can reconfirm this. As I said during the debate as well, I will send this
Yeah.
after the debate because I don't have
Okay.
it on me right
Okay.
now.
Because yeah, great. Because like when I was like looking, like all I see here, like from like my sources that say that this is actually like a legend, like a myth, and it's
Right.
actually not even an Indian king. It was like actually a dynasty because the name is Cherman Purmos. Yeah.
Right, I'll come back to you whenever I find something on it. Don't worry.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, no problem.